Welcome to the Coach's Preview Show. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. A couple of special guests here with me today. Part of our WCTV Game of the Week tonight from Centennial High School, Coach Matt Kriesky, and from Independence High School, Coach Scott Blade. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Appreciate you having us.
Big game tonight, obviously, with region implications. Centennial 0-1 on the season in region play after the opening week loss to Ravenwood. For Independence, it's the region opener for you guys. Both teams dropped their week one games, but were able to bounce back with big wins last week. So it's a big game, obviously, because of region implications, but also, obviously, playoff implications. You know, something that we talk about, and I know you guys maybe can't say this, but I will. 4 of our 5 teams are probably going to be the playoff teams. No disrespect to Dickson County, but it'll probably be 4 of our teams. So this is a big week, Game 3.
It's huge for us, you know, starting out 0-2 in the region. You're digging yourself out of a hole. So this is, you know, we've told our kids all week how huge this game is. You hate it. It's only week 3, but here in this region, like we've talked about before, I mean, it's big.
Coach?
I agree. Plus, we're both rebounding from losses a couple weeks ago. Got the train going in the right direction. The third week is generally where you can kind of see what type of team you're going to have. After that opening week, you scrimmage, but you still don't know once the kids are under the lights how they're going to react. And then you get to massage out some of those mistakes. Your second week gives you a chance. You still got some issues. This third week, and from here on, you kind of get a chance to really see what type of team you have moving forward. So this is important on really every front.
Mm-hmm. Do you like this game this early? I mean, of course, you can't run from these games, but talking week 3, having a game of this magnitude, so to speak, Coach Kriesky?
I think, I mean, this was our first region game. I, you know, feel a little bit better, but, you know, with it, like I said, being our second one, you know, starting out 0-2 in the regions is going to be tough to bounce back from. That means we probably got to pretty much win out the rest of the region games from here on out. You know, so it's going to be tough for us.
Coach Blade, I heard you say, I may have been watching this show from last year. That's how I do my research, by the way. I got to watch and see how Dr. Qualls handled things. But I think you'd said something to the effect of the biggest improvement you see is between game 1 and 2. Obviously, you guys had a big improvement, especially from the turnover standpoint. Is that right? Did I get that right? Between week 1 and 2 is where you see that improvement?
Yeah, for me, I believe that. Just because, scrimmages are controlled situations. We're not running any live special teams generally, at least we don't. So that's a big question mark going into that week 1. Plus the young people that haven't played. Mm-hmm. So you take both of our games the first week. Those are sold out crowds, standing room only, big rivalry type of games. Well, the reality of it is you can work and work and work, and man, sometimes they're kids. Yeah. They're 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and those lights are bright. You know, the crowd noises, you know, the chants, the bands, the whole environment is a lot to overcome mentally for the young and inexperienced. And, you know, even look at the UT game. I mean, Coach Pruitt said it best. We haven't been sitting on our thumbs the last 8 months. We've been working our tails off. It didn't show, you know, quite like they wanted to, but I mean, the work has been put in, but in between the white lines, you can't guarantee all the time, you know, the result.
Coach Kriesky, you talked about this last week, that you would have preferred to start your first 2 games in those non-region games. Mm-hmm. You didn't really have that luxury. Talk about that a little bit.
You know, it's playing non-region games, like he said. You know, I saw some of our guys, some of our younger guys play with a little bit more confidence. They were calmer, you can tell, and they played better last Friday night because, you know, from playing Ravenwood the week before. You can tell we were so uptight against Ravenwood, and it wouldn't matter who we would have played. Those guys that don't have any experience are going to be uptight. They're going to be nervous. So you like to work out the kinks weeks 1 and 2. Then, you know, you go week 3 into a region game, you feel like your kids are comfortable, they're settled down, they understand the atmosphere. Because like you said, you know, that the atmosphere here in Williamson County is going to be big. No matter what, you're playing at home, you're playing away, whoever you're playing, especially if it's a region game, it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Coach Blade, talk about that, having the home field. Is that a big deal, even though both crowds will be there and they'll travel well? Do you think it's a big deal? Is it overrated in your opinion? What do you think
I
about
have
playing
a
this
couple
game at
different.
home?
I'm glad to be home. We've been the last couple away, and on an away schedule, as far as a home crowd, it's just nice to have your own stuff there, your office, your locker room, your equipment room, your training room, everything right there on site. That's the biggest. The crowd is generally bigger, for the home side, or at least we, I know we spread out all over the field now, but that part is good. The downtime, the other part of it is that there's more downtime between when you have your pregame meal at the end of school. And so we usually keep our kids on lockdown, but that's a couple hours before we even bring them back, do a walkthrough, and start going. So on an away game, it's eat, it's bag check, wait for the bus, and you're on. It seems to flow a little better because, like I said, there's an hour and a half to 2 hours of downtime. But that being said, that's a good thing and a bad thing. We'd much rather be at home. We've been traveling for the last 2 weeks, and it's just easier, especially with construction and traffic everywhere, and just having everything at your fingertips like you're used to is a big benefit.
Let's talk about last week's game here, our games. Obviously, big bounce back week for both of you. After week 1 losses, Independence with the 2010 win at CPA, Centennial 37-24 win over Smyrna. And you guys mentioned this before. You're dealing with 15, 16-year-olds. I had a pretty wise man tell me one time that we're basing our profession on young people, and that can be tough sometimes. So you have to be a little bit of a psychologist sometimes. I bet both of you went through that a little bit this week. Talk about that, Coach Kriesky.
Like some of our young guys I call them young guys, some of them are seniors, but they're first-year starters, down. So you've got to be kind of positive, bring them back up. And our biggest thing, I thought, is, we had no confidence. After you get beat by Ravenwood the way we did, I was worried about our confidence. Now, I see a little more pep in our step. Even with practice this week, you can see they're practicing better. When you always get that first win, you start, the kids that from last year did not play, they're feeling better. So we're starting to trust each other, trust the system, what we're doing. So hopefully we can continue that and continue to grow throughout the year.
Coach Blade, I know you're a guy that really preaches toughness a lot, and I know Coach Kriesky does as well. Is that a little frustrating at times that you have to play that role? I mean, I guess you have to do it at every level, but maybe particularly at this level, and maybe even, sadly to say, where we live, so to speak, because it's a pretty easy life here, really, when you look at it compared to maybe some other situations.
Yeah, it's a challenge we all face. They don't. I'm speaking in general, so please don't email me or text me or
Send it to me, by the way. I'm the one that brought it up.
To him. But, the kids they don't want for a whole lot. Even in the programs, they have nice uniforms. We have an Adidas contract. We all have trainers there on site. And we're really blessed, and I'm not sure that the kids fully understand how blessed we are to have all those things. But that having to, and then you look at the campuses and how they operate. They're generally safe campuses. There's a positive environment. There's things. I've been to campuses where, man, I didn't want to walk down the hallway.
Right.
As a grown man, and some tougher neighborhoods. That went to those places. I just think that everything in life is a challenge for these kids. Getting them to be tough physically and mentally. Physically and mentally, that's a big challenge. At least facing us, and I know we're not unique. But it's part of the job. It's getting these kids to realize that they can be much more than they think they can through mental. And obviously football is a physically tough sport, but it requires both of them. But it's a challenge. We all face it. And the kids, I'm proud of the way our kids responded. You're talking about the last week's game. That was probably the toughest. You and I talked about this, Coach, that was probably the toughest we've played as far as physically tough in the last couple of years. And for that, was nice, and we had a couple of long drives, and we've talked about that's not typically our offense. So to sustain a focus and a physical and mental toughness through that, I couldn't have been more proud of the kids because, like I said, you preach it, you coach it, you got to work them as a psychiatrist, whatever. Man, the kids responded, and that makes you proud, and that makes you, okay, maybe they are getting it, type of thing.
Coach Kriesky, let's talk a little bit more specifically about your game. Desmond Smith, getting a heavy dose of Desmond Smith. I know we talked about this last week that, maybe having Jariel last year is a little bit, maybe at times too big a dose, it felt like, of him. But it's turning out that Desmond Smith's filling that exact same role. I had him down for 198 yards of rushing and 2 touchdowns. Talk about his performance last week.
Desmond had an outstanding game. We started him out this fall at the slot receiver. We thought that would be the position for him. Moved him back to tailback, and he's doing well, doing things that we thought he could do. Running our run plays that we do. He's good at, especially finding the hole and making people miss some things. I think he's better at that than what Jariel was. Jariel, he was going to bust it. But with Desmond, he's a little sneaky. He sneak up in the hole. The next thing you know, he may break it. So we got to continue. To be honest, we got to continue to lean on him. He's going to be our horse on our offense. We got to keep feeding him. Hopefully, he stays healthy and has a good game tonight for us.
And Kevin Townsell, also another name that stood out. A kickoff return for a touchdown, also a pick six. Talk about his performance last week and what he means to your team.
Kevin has been playing in some type of role since his sophomore year. He played quite a bit defense as a sophomore. Last year he played both sides. Didn't have a huge role on the offensive side, but he played. Man, he's our go-to guy. He doesn't get off the field. He's on special teams, offense, and defense. He came up huge with that kickoff. Smyrna just scored. So they were kind of getting some momentum, get some excitement back. You can see on their sideline. You can see the guys. Then boom, they kick it right to him. He takes it back. Then you can see it kind of deflated him a little bit. Then so we were able to score again. So they were staying at it. We knew they were in a throwing down situation. So we were dropped back some of our zone coverage stuff, and he was able just to pick it off and return it for a touchdown, kind of seal the deal for us. So he's having a huge year for us. Again, he's got to stay healthy, because he does a lot of things for us. So we're really proud of what his production, what he's done so far for us.
Now, wasn't that on back-to-back plays, by the way, the kickoff returns? They had one and then you had one?
Correct. Yes, we're coming out of half. That's one thing we said, we cannot have a big play. And it happened.
15 and 16-year-olds, right?
Yeah. And so our kickoff team did some things that they haven't done all year. One, we didn't put it in the end zone. Two, I think our guys, when we're consistently putting it in the end zone, so then we were getting a little bit lazy on our kickoff return team, and I felt like once they caught the ball, like, oh, well, now we got to go. So we were out of our lanes, what we were supposed to do, and they returned a big kick. And then Kevin came back and responded well.
Obviously, your team responded well as a whole. Coach Blade, we talked about you guys were down 10-0 early. You hung in there. I was reading your quotes after the game, and you've alluded to it already. You talked a lot about, hopefully that said something about maybe the personality of this team, the personality they're taking on with that toughness you talked about. Is that the thing you were most pleased about, that hanging in there?
It was, because it was by no means a perfect game, no means our best mental effort, but I was really pleased that the kids hung in there, and against defending state champions. I mean, it's still, Ingle Martin does such a great job with his kids. Those kids I know they lost a lot of seniors. Well, they also replaced they replaced them with seniors, a lot of them out there. So it was a good night for us at their place to continue to fight and for us to have to win a different way than what we've won in the past with guys that the quarterback, showed some guts and toughness. A harder run game. We don't have any elusive backs. We're just 3 yards in a cloud of dust which hopefully sets up our passing game. We had some receivers find the open spots and make critical plays. But I think that was what was fun about that game. It wasn't perfect by any stretch, but it was a big step forward. in the way we're going to have to be successful throughout this year. And that is no turnovers. We had 6 bad snaps the week before. We had a total of, we lost the ball 5 times. And we're still ahead by a point, I think, starting in the fourth quarter the week before. And that shouldn't happen. So if we can take care of the ball and keep getting better, those younger guys keep getting more experience, it'll be an interesting year.
And no turnovers. I mean, we're talking, that's not something you see a lot in a high school game, much less week 2. Mm-hmm. So you had to be really pleased with that.
Really pleased with it. Going back, and we work on ball security every drill, every play. We're reminding them, and unfortunately, the first game, we turned it over, and fortunately for us, this game, it came down to a real tight game, and I probably like most was we were up 13-10, and I think there's 7 minutes left, and we held on to the ball for 5 or 6 minutes of that, and just grinded out enough first downs, and ended up scoring to put the game out of, realistically out of reach. But the way we were able to do that, because we typically don't have long drives and we typically don't have very many plays. So for us to be able to show we can be successful doing it that way was a big step for our program.
Well, and what's impressive about that too, I think sometimes, fans and people that critique what we do as coaches don't appreciate when you can't recruit your own players. Sometimes you have to adjust. We talked about that, Coach, that you'd like to have 6 or 7 play drives, but you said, here's the personnel I have, here's the way the game's going tonight, this 13 play drive is exactly what we need. I think sometimes people underrate that as a high school coach, for those of us, again, that don't get to recruit our own players, that you have to adjust with your style sometimes.
Exactly. You have to take what walks through your doors and do the best of what you got, and every year you may have the same scheme philosophy, but stuff that worked really well the year before or 3 years before, right? You got to find what works well with the personality of your team and the kids that are touching the ball or running the ball or throwing it.
Let's talk about last year's game before we preview this year's. And some of this stuff I had to do a double take.
That was last year. We don't even talk about last year.
So
No,
listen.
let's talk about that.
711 yards of offense. Now, I'm sure Coach Blade's happy about this. Shari Hainsworth, 210 yards receiving, he's gone. Jariel Wilson, 217, he's gone. And then on the independent side of the ball, nearly 400 yards of passing from Nathan Sisko that night. TJ Sheffield with a big game, 9 catches for 181 yards. All those guys are gone. But just to kind of set this up, as a fan, that's what I want to see. I want to see a game like that with a lot of scoring. Tell me as coaches how that, forget the outcome of the game, but in terms of the just back and forth scoring, are those the kind of games you like to coach in?
I don't. No, I don't.
I know.
I like to be slow, maybe I like long drives, defensive, playing a tough style of defense. That was games that last year that I don't like being in. And it felt like defensively we couldn't do anything at all to stop them. And fortunately for us, Shari had a big night that night. So it was back and forth, and man, anybody could have won that game, and we were fortunate. We were very lucky to come out on top.
So, Coach Blade, you said you're shaking your head. I don't really like that either. But then you talk about the 6 and 7 play drives.
I like it when we do it. I don't like it when the other team's doing it too.
Yeah.
So you
that shouldn't be a big shocker.
Yeah.
So talk about that defensively, though. Is that a challenge when, let's say you've got one of those nights where you're scoring in 6 or 7 plays. Is that a challenge for your defense in terms of fatigue and being on the field a little bit too long?
Take last year, for instance. I think we were up by a touchdown or something and got an interception in the third quarter. And that could have been because the whole first half and all the time leading up to that, it was back and forth. Nobody was stopping. Then we get one turnover. And we were up, I think, at the time. That was our time to go ahead and get 2 scores, and it was in their territory as well, and get 2 scores. And now if we just keep doing the same thing, we're already up. Unfortunately, we came away, and it was in their red zone. We came away with 0 points on that. That drive was terrible for us. Now they come back and score. Now we're back to square one again, and time's ticking away. It's hot in August or September here. So as you get into those track meet type of games, You get in the fourth quarter, now it's who's not cramping.
Yeah.
Because that's literally a track meet.
And I think that's what it came down to. Kids were cramping, and it said, I mean, defenses were on the field, they were off the field, offenses were scoring on it was big plays.
All the special teams, you're talking about running full speed on kickoffs. I mean, that's, I don't think either one of us punted, but it was kickoff returns. So, I mean, you're running 40, 50 yards, which are like, extra sprints in there. I mean, at the time, that was a blown opportunity for us. That they did well. They responded like champs to, after a turnover in the red zone, being down, to hold us. That was the first time we didn't score in the perfect position, and that stop really switched the momentum, and they were able to get back on track, and we weren't quite as good.
I think we had 2 stops. If I'm not mistaken, we had that stop, and then we had an interception at the end of the game.
Last play of the game or something.
That was it.
That was it. And that's what it comes down to. In those type of games, those track meet type of games, it's literally, who has the ball last and who's going to make that one play. Maybe not even, like I said, an interception. A turnover on downs is nice, but man, it's like really comes down to one small mistake by one person.
It's interesting in a game where there's 102 points scored that both of you are referring to plays that were made defensively. Again, that's something the football novice out there might not quite understand.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point of view. Let me ask you this, Coach Kriesky, we talked about this last week, style of play. It's got to be fun for your kids to play in games like that and for offenses like you guys are playing. Do you think that's important? Does it matter that they're out there enjoying that? Or you're just saying, here's my personnel, I'm trying to play this way because of that?
Well, we look at it as, how we are at Centennial. That's one of the reasons, my first was 2 years, we tried to pound it, do what we did when I was in Rutherford County. Then the past 2 years, we felt like we've had more athletes. I say last year for sure we had more receivers. This year we don't feel like we have the receivers that we had in the previous years.
Coach Blade didn't agree with you, by the way. He thinks you've got those people.
But, yes, you got to have fun and practice. Practice needs to be fun. If you're sitting there just beating up on each other day in, day out, one, we don't have the numbers, so somebody's going to get, so we don't have the depth. If we're sitting there pounding on each other, at least if we're throwing the ball around, spreading it out, running some zone, we're not pounding. We can kind of keep our guys healthy because you still want to be physical in practice. You don't want to back off too much, but still you don't have to be as physical if you're just, if we're lining up in I formation, running power every play.
Coach Blade, let me ask you this, because when I entered this league as a coach 4 years ago, coaches, I think, pay attention to other sports and people that are doing well and have good programs. One of the first things I heard was the kids like playing in Coach Blade's system. Is that important to you?
He gets all the kids, all the transfer kids, all my kids want to go play for him.
You know what? I think it does. The kids do have fun, and just exactly the same reasons as Matt's saying here is, we're at an age, it's a time where protecting our kids and being healthy, being able to line up every Friday, and being able to go through practice where you're not beating the tar out of each other, it's important. So our kids and our kids, we get more people come out for receiver than we do for linemen. I know you're in the same situation, and everybody is really. It's like those linemen, and it's funny, the colleges will come around. The college is always asking, Coach, we need linemen. Every college in the country, do you have any linemen? Do you have any? Everybody in the country's got receivers, So it's a different sell. But I think that we make it fun. We try and get many people involved. Obviously, our number one receiver is going to have more than our number 4 receiver, but our running backs we're going to try and get him involved in the passing game. So he may not be the old guy that carries the ball 30 times a game and ground and pound. Well, he may carry the ball 10 times a game and have 5, targets at passing too. So I think it gets more people involved. I think it's we're always evolving. Trying to keep things interesting for the kids, and the kids enjoy that too. Yesterday we're we're trying to look at something a different way.
You go ahead and tell us. Go ahead and tell us. Go ahead and tell us.
He was getting ready to, by the way.
What we're going to do is we're going to throw it out to Bishop on the right, and Ethan runs all the way up the left, and then she's going to throw it across the field. Be ready for that. Be playing for that all night.
And that's the thing, as he's talking, I know he's being funny, but as I coach secondary, I love secondary, you know, all week. I know he says they're not as explosive, big plays as they have been, but you never know. It's going to be, it might be tonight against us. So, you know, all week preaching to our secondary, stay back, stay back, stay back. Because Ethan, he does a great job, and he got a heck of an arm. He's a big kid, and for his size, I think he runs well. So, I mean, even if he pulls it down and run, you know, our smaller guys are going to have to tackle his big old quarterback. His quarterback's bigger than most of our defensive guys.
Well, let's talk about Ethan. You know, he's probably got now, what, Coach Blade, 9 or 10 starts under his belt ever?
Yeah, in the spread offense.
But he plays really like a guy, Coach Kriesky. That seems like he's been playing since he was a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this about Ethan. The biggest thing, because I thought during this spring and really the first part of this summer, I thought, oh my gosh, we're missing something here. He's not getting something. And we came back from dead period, and that first week of 7-on-7s was mediocre. He missed some touch passes, some easier stuff. And really, from that second week of 7-on-7 until now, he's just improving. He is our leader of our offense. He's a leader in our locker room. He's such a great kid, but he works his tail off. I mean, and he has to deal with me in his ear. Now, I love the kid. I love him like a son, but my goodness, he is mentally tough, he's physically tough, and he's an incredible competitor.
You can tell.
He's a competitor. And those are the dudes you want back there.
Foxhole guy.
Yes.
Really like an Andrew Bunch type of guy that can take me at an elevated level, you know, and totally respond. And it's yes, sir. And he's compartmentalizing, he's doing it. And that's the best thing I could say about him is he is a tough competitor, and he has the whole locker room's ear, you know. We're excited. We're really excited about him.
So let me ask you guys, and I know you're not going to totally give the game plan up, but if you looked at something about tonight's game, Coach Kriesky, and said, forget, I know Coach Blade's going to say, look at the scoreboard, the final scores that we'll look at. But if there's some kind of stat, either offensively or defensively, that you would say, if this happens, we're going to feel pretty good.
Well, just like he alluded to earlier, you know, if we can, on defensively, if we can create some turnovers, you know, to give us extra opportunity on offense, you know, we're going to need those to win the game tonight. We're going to need those extra opportunities. Hopefully, it's going to be tough. Hopefully we can get Ethan to make a bad throw here or there, create some turnovers somehow, maybe hopefully have a big play in special teams. I don't know. It's going to be tough tonight. You know, he does a great job. I've been here 4 years now. Beat him one time, so I'm hoping maybe we can get another time. He has my number, and he likes to run it up on me every time.
Come on.
So,
The guy who scored 62 last year, right?
so, but it's going to be tough. You know, we just need extra opportunities offensively.
Coach, if there's one thing you would
Two
say.
things. Turnovers, we've got to win the turnover battle, and number two, the number of missed tackles. This dude back there is electric. I mean, he is a sweet running back. He is a problem in a good way for you,
Yes,
bad way for
yeah.
me. But the number of missed tackles, those are the two stats that for us will tell a lot.
Gentlemen, appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.